Welcome back. Today is the roster update and MLB The Show. Um, the main things really that happened is obviously Tariq Skubal went diamond, Tyler Glasnow went diamond, Corbin Burns went diamond, and I'm pretty sure there's like one other that went diamond. Josh Naylor, I think it was. Yeah, Josh Naylor went diamond, and William Contreras, I think also. Yeah. Anyways, I'm bringing this video to try to kind of just say what to do like the first day of the roster update. If you watched my video from the other day, we had a video of relatively cheaper players to invest in. I get not everyone on this game plays, enough to have a lot of stubs. So obviously because of that, sometimes you'd rather buy, instead of 10 of Clay Holmes. Obviously, I'm not saying invest in Clay Holmes, but instead of buying like 10 of a gold player that can be a way higher chance of going diamond, you could buy a whole bunch of a silver or bronze, and you can make a pretty good amount of stubs off of it. So, from that video though, all of the guys I told you guys to like invest in, they did all go up. I mean, Brian Bayo was only 2 overall, but he still went up. And I still think he's going to go up more. Now, with some of these guys, like, obviously, if they went up from, like, for example, CJ Abrams, who we also invested in, he went up from a silver to a gold. Now, you could definitely make your stubs from just selling him now. Um, but it really just depends on a confidence standpoint. If you think that he can go diamond next roster update, or, you just want quick stubs now, then you could obviously sell him. But if you think he's going to, like, become a diamond or something, then you could just hold and wait till next roster update. It's gonna be a while, but regardless, he went up. Jackson Merrill, who we did go over, he ended up going up from a bronze to a silver. Vinny Pascantino, who we did also go over, he went up in overall. Now I don't have many of them, like I said, but I was just talking about relatively low stubs options. But anyways, so obviously that's the main thing. I haven't really sold many of my cards yet from the roster update, but that's like, obviously the main thing is whether you want to sell some of the cards, hold some of the cards you have from the roster update, and all that. Um, but another thing I would look at is what a lot of the guys that didn't go up in overall that were supposed to, or like people at least kind of thought were going to go up, their prices drop a lot because of, you know, they didn't go up. Roster updates not for a long time, so they're relatively cheap. So someone like Anthony Volpe right here, he costs currently 169 stubs. You can make a buy order for, and a few days ago he was around 300s, and even possibly 2 weeks ago he was in like the 500s. So he's relatively cheap now. He's obviously not playing nearly as good as he was to start the season, but he's still playing really good, and he's the leadoff man for the Yankees, who, I mean, as of recently, they've been really like struggling to score runs, but on the season, they still are a really good team. He's the leadoff guy. Players like him, who he only went up 1 overall this roster update, he's relatively cheap and you can invest in. I know it's going to take a long time, obviously, for the next roster update, but someone like him, maybe someone like Oswaldo Cabrera. I haven't really looked at it. This is all kind of like just me showing you it live, but this is kind of like what I would look at. Is the first thing in the roster update is finding players that are obviously playing good for you to invest in for next roster update. Um, some of them you could find for relatively cheap prices, just for the simple fact of a lot of the prices go up before the roster update, and then they start to drop down after the roster update. As you can see in the top right, another player I am investing in currently is Blaze Alexander. Um, currently 31 stubs, and he went up 7 overall from this roster update. He's been really, really good this season. Um, and yeah, like, it's just players like that who they went up in overall. Sometimes, you just starting to get some of your next investments. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people already go over a lot of the golds and stuff to invest in, and I know a lot of people don't have the stubs. Like if I told you to invest in, Lordy's Gary O, it's a lot of stubs. I know, like for someone who, they only have around 10K majority of the time because there's someone that is more of a casual player. They don't play that much. You can really only get like 10 of him, and if he doesn't go to diamond, then you're kind of fucked in terms of like you're not gonna make many stubs. Someone like Blaze Alexander, he's 31 stubs right now. Obviously, he probably wouldn't go much higher than a silver next roster update, if anything. But like, players like that or some of the close silvers, like close to golds, like Anthony Volpe, like for example, you know, if you want to get a high gold, obviously the chance of you making stubs is obviously way higher. But at the same time, if they don't go diamond, you don't make many subs at all. Um, with some of these silvers that are close to golds, I think this is the move for people who don't have many stubs. So that's the first thing I would look at. Obviously another thing I would look at, which I haven't myself really looked at too much, but try to look at some of the guys that, you know, either went down in overall a lot or went up in overall a lot. And sometimes you could find like discrepancies. Like this one, I mean, I just randomly clicked and this one actually looks like a pretty good discrepancy. Um, you know, or actually is the minimum buy now, it might be actually higher than this. This is why it's minimum 900. Um, but yeah, like, I mean, this one, you obviously can't buy him anymore for other than, 900 stubs. But if you could definitely look around and find discrepancies in this between the sell and buy now, and you could make quick stubs off that. Like, just if I could buy it for this, I would buy obviously for 577. As soon as I get one, I could then sell it for, the 913 that the sell now is. And obviously, I don't know, I was just, going around. But as you can see, just through, if you go around, like, you'll see that there's a lot of discrepancies in terms of, the sell to buy now. And you can make quick stubs off that alone. You know, and just looking at some of the players, maybe obviously if they're playing bad, that's obviously why they went down in overall. But, there's definitely some players that they just could be struggling to start the season. Someone like Chris Paddock, currently only 76 stubs. If you want to go out and invest in someone like this, someone who went down a lot in overall, this is the time to do it. Obviously, when they first get their overall dropped. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing. I'm going to obviously like pause the video right here, and I'll get back to it after I find some options that I think are another few players that are good, relatively low stub options to invest in. Or maybe if I find a certain discrepancy between, the buy and sell now, I'll give you guys that too. Obviously, unless you're seeing the video right after it comes out, the likelihood that discrepancy is still there is pretty low. But I'm going to try to find some relatively low stub options to invest in. Currently, maybe some of the players, like I said, Anthony Volpe, I think, is one of them that I'm going to invest in. So that's the first one, I guess, is Anthony Volpe. Currently really low in stubs. Like I said, prices will drop right after the roster update. So look around for the guys like that. So I'll be back after I find a few more, and I'll go over them, and let's try to make some more stubs. So after going over kind of like, some of the cards, obviously there's a reason he went down, but 100 stubs currently, and after that the next buy order is 78. So after this is bought, it's down to like 70 stubs. So yeah, 70 stubs. I know he's playing pretty bad. That's obviously why he went down. But for someone who's been in the past a really good pitcher, Joe Musgrove, someone who recently obviously just went down at the roster update, which is kind of like what I was saying is at the beginning of the roster update, some of these guys that went down, if you're confident in them, I haven't really looked at like the whole stats and who he's played, all that type of stuff. But you know, throwing some 70 something Stubs for a pitcher that used to be obviously really good, and this is like just a down start of the year. Maybe he could turn it back up, figure it out. I don't think this is a bad choice. Kind of like I was saying with the other video who did end up going down. But someone like O'Neal Cruz, really low cost. But when someone who's either having just a down start of a year or someone with high potential, players like that, I don't mind throwing just some Stubs at him and see what happens. But since the price, like I was saying, drops for a lot of people, I know we already said Brian Bayo, but honestly, if you go through the whole pitching staff of this team, whether it's Cutter Crawford, Tanner Houck, Garrett Whitlock, all these guys, they've been all pitching really, really good. If you want to go out and invest in one of them, they're, I think, all really low price options for like silvers. Obviously, I don't know which one I personally am going to invest in because I don't know. This video, I kind of am just saying, what you should be looking at, what you should do. Try to look at some of these relatively, 78 overall, I think is a perfect overall to like try to look at to invest in. If you don't have a lot of Stubs to invest in like golds, just because, if they go up 2 overall, they're, a gold, and then you can make a lot. If I'm buying Tanner Houck right now for 130 Stubs, next roster update, he goes up 2 overall. I could sell each one of them for at least 600 Stubs. I'm making around a 500 profit per Tanner Houck I have. So yeah, I would look at a lot of guys like that, a relatively around the 78, 77 overall area. But yeah, so pitchers right here, Garrett Whitlock, Tanner Houck, Cutter Crawford, those are some guys you could look at. I was looking at, who was it? Cole Reagans. ERA right now is a 3.9. It's not like super, super good, but he's 148 Stubs, and he plays in a really, really, really bad hitting division. So he's going to see some bad teams. His ERA is going to be better, all that type of stuff. I think he's a relatively low buy now option considering his price also did drop from the roster update to now. So maybe Cole Reagans. I think it's a lot of the pitchers that you could look at. Someone like Reed Detmers, like I said, he's a 78 overall, that kind of like range of 78 overall. He's a young player. Costs 130 right now. He's someone I would look at. Some of the guys like that, like I said, are I think the main options you should be looking at around that 70 overall. I already have a decent amount of him, and I went over him a little bit in the last video, but his price is really low now. He's been kind of playing kind of bad, but I still think, he's relatively young. You've seen the last month he had. Obviously, I don't think he's going to do that every month, but he's definitely someone I could see going at least gold. So, for 129 Stubs, this is another guy that I think if you want to put some Stubs into, go ahead and put some Stubs into. But yeah, that's kind of like it. I just kind of wanted to bring a quick what you should be looking at kind of video at the roster update, which is, looking at some guys like maybe Joe Musgrove who went down in overall and you think they just had a bad start maybe, then you could go out and try to get them for a really low price. For the guys that didn't go up in overall, kind of like Anthony Volpe, their prices are eventually going to go up. At the start of this video, he was 169 Stubs. If you look at him now, he's at 181. So you kind of have to act a little bit quicker at the beginning of a roster update. In the first few days, there's probably going to be pretty low prices, but they're going to go back up again eventually, especially the closer we get to the next roster update. But the main one out of all the people I was saying is probably Anthony Volpe. For me, at least, I'm investing in Anthony Volpe here. And I sold, like I said, if you watched the last video, I sold a lot of my Spencer Steers when he got supercharged, because I was selling for like 1,000 and something like that. But I think he's another guy that I definitely am going to invest in. I think you guys should invest in. For the 130 stubs, I think it's just worth taking the shot. And yeah, just with the rest of your cards that you bought, if you bought some of the cards kind of that I went over in last video, something like Jackson Merrill, I think at this price there's no point, because I feel like you might as well hold. If you sell the card now, I just don't think you'll make much out of it. But someone like CJ Abrams from last video, who I went over, if you think that he's not going to go up to a diamond or even a high gold, then you could sell him now. If you think that, he can definitely become that, then I would obviously hold and wait till the next roster update. But yeah, that's kind of the video. I'll probably make another video about like my official, like who I'm going to invest in for sure. And let me know if y'all want like me to include some of the golds. I don't know. I feel like just for more people to feel like, they could also invest in it. I don't want to keep giving a whole bunch of options, that people can't afford to really like buy a lot of. But I feel like, a decent amount of people could afford to buy a lot of Anthony Volpe or something like that. Players that don't cost that high of stubs. So I guess y'all let me know if y'all want me to include golds or not in it, or just, some of the silvers and bronzes to invest in. But that's kind of the video, just a quick little roster update video. If you watch my franchise, I'm going to be making another franchise video soon, so don't worry. But yeah, that's really it. I'll see y'all in the next one.